Princess Zara walked through the long, metal corridors of her father's giant spaceship and felt the same old feeling of being trapped. The walls were made of shining silver metal and the lights were bright white, but she hated being here. She was 25 years old and had spent most of her life on this ship watching her father's army take over planet after planet. The Caltharian Empire was the strongest force in the galaxy, and her father, Emperor Korath, was proud of that fact. He wanted Zara to be proud too, but she never felt that way. Today she was walking to the lower levels of the ship where they kept the prisoners. Her father did not like her going there, but she had special codes that let her go anywhere she wanted. The guards always let her pass because she was the princess. She liked to study the different alien species that her father's army captured. There were so many different kinds of beings in the galaxy, and each one was interesting in its own way. Zara had studied every type of alien in their databases. She knew about the tall blue Zentari with their 4 arms and the small green Pixels with their big eyes. She had seen the rock-like Groltans and the snake-like Vasari. Each species had different ways of living and thinking, but her father's empire treated them all the same way. They were all prisoners or slaves or dead. The elevator took her down to level 7, which was deeper than she had ever gone before. The air here felt different and smelled strange. The lights were not as bright and the corridors were more narrow. She could hear the hum of the ship's engines louder down here. This level needed special permission to enter, and even her royal codes had never worked here before. Today they did, and she wondered why. The guard at the entrance was a tall Caltharian soldier with the usual purple skin and silver armor. He looked surprised to see her, but scanned her identification and let her pass without saying anything. Zara walked through another corridor that had only one cell at the end. The walls here were thicker and the security systems were more complex than anything she had seen before. Inside the cell she saw something that made her stop walking. There was a being sitting on a metal bench who looked completely different from any species she had studied. He was tall but not as tall as a Caltharian, and his skin was a strange pale color that was almost pink. His hair was dark brown and cut short, and his eyes were small and brown. Most aliens had big eyes or strange colored eyes, but his looked almost normal except for the color. The being looked up when she approached, and she saw intelligence in those brown eyes. Most prisoners looked scared or angry when they saw Caltharian royalty, but this one just looked curious. He was wearing simple gray prison clothes, and his hands were not chained, which was unusual for this level of security. "What are you?" Zara asked him in the common language that most species in the galaxy could understand. The being stood up and walked closer to the energy barrier that kept him in the cell. He moved in a smooth way that seemed natural and not afraid. "Name is Jake Martinez," he said, and his voice was calm and clear. "I should be asking you the same thing, princess." Zara was surprised that he knew she was a princess and that he did not seem afraid of her. Most prisoners would bow or try to hide when they saw her royal clothes and jewelry. This Jake Martinez looked right at her like she was just another person. His attitude was strange but also interesting. "I am Princess Zara of the Caltharian Empire," she said. "My father rules this galaxy and you are his prisoner." Jake nodded but did not look impressed by what she said. "Yeah, I figured that out when your people grabbed me," he said. "Been here for what feels like months now. Nobody wanted to tell me why." "Where are you from?" Zara asked. She had never seen his species before, and that was very unusual. Her father's empire had records of almost every intelligent species in the galaxy. "A planet called Earth," Jake said. "Pretty far from here, I think. Your people seemed pretty surprised when they found us." Zara tried to remember if she had heard of Earth before, but nothing came to mind. The Caltharian database had information about thousands of worlds and species, but she could not recall anything about humans or Earth. This made Jake Martinez even more interesting to her. "How did you learn our common language?" she asked. "Been listening to your guards talk for months," Jake said with what looked like a smile. "I'm good with languages and had nothing else to do in here." The smile was strange because it made his face look friendly instead of threatening. "Most alien," Species showed aggression or fear with their expressions, but Jake Martinez looked almost happy to have someone to talk to. Zara found herself wanting to know more about him and his mysterious homeworld. "What do your people look like?" she asked. "Are they all like you?" "Pretty much," Jake said. "We come in different colors and sizes, but we are all basically the same species. We call ourselves humans." Zara spent the next hour asking Jake questions about humans and Earth. He told her about oceans of water and continents covered with green plants. He described cities with millions of humans living together, and machines that could fly through the air. Everything he said sounded impossible, but he spoke with such certainty that she began to believe him. When she finally left that day, Zara could not stop thinking about the strange prisoner named Jake Martinez. She had never met anyone like him, and she wanted to know more about his species and his world. For the first time in years, she felt curious about something other than her boring life on the ship. That night, she searched the Imperial database for any information about humans or Earth, but found nothing at all. It was like Jake Martinez and his entire species did not exist in the official records. This mystery made her even more determined to return to Level 7 and learn more about the fascinating prisoner, who was not afraid of a Caltharian princess. Zara found herself returning to Level 7 every day after her first meeting with Jake Martinez. She told herself it was just scientific curiosity about his unknown species, but deep down she knew there was more to it. Jake was the first being who had ever talked to her like she was a regular person instead of a princess, and that feeling was addictive. Each day she learned something new about humans and their world called Earth. Jake told her stories that seemed impossible, but he spoke with such detail that she began to believe every word. He described oceans that covered most of his planet and mountains that reached high into the sky. He talked about animals called dogs that lived with humans as friends, and birds that could fly across entire continents. "Your people really choose who leads them?" Zara asked one day. The concept seemed completely foreign to her. Jake laughed, and that sound always made something warm happen in her chest. "Hard to believe, right?" he said. "We call it democracy, and it gets messy sometimes, but yeah, we pick our own leaders. Sometimes we pick bad ones, but that is our fault for not paying attention." "But how do you maintain order?" Zara asked. "Without a strong ruler, people would just do whatever they want." "Some do," Jake admitted. "But most humans understand that we need rules to live together peacefully. We make the rules together and we follow them because we helped create them. When the rules are not good, we can change them." This idea of people ruling themselves was so strange to Zara that she could barely understand it. In the Caltharian Empire, the Emperor made all the decisions and everyone else followed orders. The idea that billions of beings could work together without a single strong leader seemed impossible. "What about war?" she asked. "How do humans fight without a supreme commander?" Jake was quiet for a moment, and his expression became more serious. "We are very good at war, Princess," he said finally. "Maybe too good. When humans fight, we do not give up easily, and we learn from every battle. We have fought many wars among ourselves and learned hard lessons about what happens when people cannot live together. Do humans conquer other species like my father?" "No," Jake said firmly. "We have not met any other intelligent species until your people found us. Humans fight each other sometimes, but we have never enslaved another species or taken over their worlds." Zara found this hard to believe. Every intelligent species she knew of had conquered others at some point in their history. It was natural for the strong to rule the weak. But Jake spoke of cooperation between different groups of humans and even different nations on Earth working together. "Tell me about your family," she said one day. Jake smiled that warm smile again. "I have parents who still live in the same house where I grew up," he said. "My mom is a teacher who helps young humans learn about the world. My dad builds things with his hands and is very good at fixing broken machines. I have a sister named Lisa who is smarter than me and works with computers. Are they rulers or nobles?" "No, just regular people," Jake said. "Most humans are regular people who work and raise families and try to be happy. We do not have many nobles or kings anymore. Those things mostly ended long ago. The more Zara learned about human society, the more questions she had. Jake described something called art, where humans created beautiful things just because they wanted to. He talked about music that could make people feel happy or sad, and books that told stories about imaginary people and places. Humans seemed to spend a lot of time on things that had no practical purpose except to make life more interesting. Why do humans create art if it does not help you fight or build better machines? She asked. Because it makes us human, Jake said simply. The things we create show who we are inside. Art and music and stories help us understand ourselves and each other better. Zara had never thought about such things before. Caltharian society focused on military strength and conquest. There was no time for art or music when you were busy taking over the galaxy. But Jake made these things sound important in ways she had never considered. As weeks passed, Zara found herself looking forward to their conversations more than anything else in her life. Jake never treated her like she was better than him because of her royal blood. He asked her questions about her own thoughts and feelings and seemed genuinely interested in her answers. When she expressed doubts about her father's methods, Jake listened without judging her. "You are different from other Caltharians I have met," Jake said one afternoon. "Different how?" Zara asked. "You think for yourself," he said. "Most of your people just follow orders without asking why. You ask questions and you care about the answers. My father says that questioning authority is a weakness. Where I come from, we think it is a strength," Jake said. "The best leaders are the ones who listen to questions and consider different ideas. A leader who cannot be questioned usually makes bad decisions." These conversations began to change how Zara saw her own world. She started noticing things about the Empire that had never bothered her before. The way prisoners were treated like animals instead of intelligent beings. The way her father's generals talked about conquered species like they were property instead of people. The way everyone around her seemed afraid to speak their own thoughts. One day she asked Jake about something that had been bothering her. "Do you hate me because of what my people have done?" Jake was quiet for a long time before answering. "I hate what your empire does," he said carefully. "But I do not hate you, Zara. You are not responsible for your father's choices, and you are trying to understand different ways of thinking. That takes courage." "Sometimes I wish I had been born somewhere else," she admitted. "Somewhere where I could make my own choices about how to live." "You can make those choices now," Jake said gently. "It might not be easy, but you have more power than most people to change things." As their friendship deepened, Zara began to feel something she had never experienced before. She looked forward to seeing Jake every day and felt sad when their conversations ended. She thought about him when she was supposed to be attending royal functions and found herself comparing every other being she met to him. The feeling was strange and wonderful and terrifying all at the same time. She was falling in love with a prisoner from an unknown world, and she did not know what to do about it. The months that followed changed everything for Princess Zara. What had started as curiosity about an unknown species had become the most important part of her daily life. She found herself counting the hours until she could visit Jake Martinez. In his cell on level 7, their conversations had evolved from simple questions and answers to deep discussions about life and philosophy and dreams. Jake told her more stories about Earth that painted pictures in her mind of a world she longed to see. He described summer days when humans would gather near bodies of water called beaches and enjoy the warmth of their sun. He talked about winter when frozen water called snow would fall from the sky and cover everything in white. The seasons sounded magical to someone who had spent her entire life on a spaceship with artificial light and recycled air. "What did you do before you were captured?" Zara asked one day. "I was a soldier," Jake admitted. "But not like your soldiers. I joined the military to protect my family and my country from people who wanted to hurt them. We were not trying to conquer anyone or take their worlds. You were defending your home." "Yes," Jake said. "When your people attacked our ships, we fought back because we had no choice. We did not start the fight, but we were not going to let anyone destroy our world without defending it." Zara felt a chill when she heard this. My father's forces attacked Earth. A scouting fleet, Jake said quietly. They destroyed 3 of our ships before we could react. We managed to fight them off, but I got captured when my ship was damaged. The idea that her father had already begun attacking Jake's people made Zara feel sick. She had assumed Jake was captured during some routine patrol, but learning that Caltharian forces had fired first changed everything. Her people were the aggressors in whatever conflict was brewing between the Empire and humanity. I am sorry, she said, and meant it completely. Jake looked at her with those warm brown eyes and smiled sadly. You did not give the orders, Princess. You are not responsible for what your father's military does. But Zara felt responsible anyway. She was part of the royal family and benefited from the Empire's conquests, even if she did not agree with them. The comfortable life she lived was built on the suffering of beings like Jake and all the other prisoners in the ship's cells. Their conversations began to include more personal topics as their trust in each other grew. Jake told her about his childhood growing up in a place called California, where the weather was always warm and plants grew everywhere. He described playing games with other children and learning to swim in the ocean and watching movies on electronic screens. What is a movie? Zara asked. Stories told with moving pictures, Jake explained. Humans create fictional stories and act them out so other people can watch and enjoy them. Some are exciting adventures and others are about people falling in love. People falling in love. Yes, Jake said with that smile that always made her heart beat faster. Love is important to humans. We write songs about it and tell stories about it and make movies about it. Finding someone to love and share your life with is one of the most important things humans do. Zara had never thought much about love before. Caltharian royalty married for political reasons to form alliances between powerful families. She had always assumed she would eventually marry whoever her father chose for her, and that would be the end of it. The idea of choosing someone based on feelings rather than politics was completely foreign. Have you ever been in love? She asked. Jake was quiet for a moment. I thought so once, he said. There was a woman named Carol who I dated for 2 years. We talked about getting married, but she decided she wanted different things from life than I did. It hurt when she left, but I understood her reasons. Do you still love her? No, Jake said, looking directly at Zara. That kind of love faded when I realized we were not right for each other. Real love has to work both ways, and both people have to want the same things. Something in the way he looked at her when he said this made Zara feel warm all over. She began to wonder if Jake might have feelings for her too, or if she was just imagining things because she wanted it to be true. As their friendship deepened, Zara started making changes in her life that she hoped would impress Jake. She began visiting other prisoners on different levels and using her royal influence to improve their living conditions. She ordered better food for all prisoners and convinced her father that healthier prisoners would be more useful as workers. You have been busy, Jake observed one day when she told him about her efforts to help other prisoners. You made me think about how we treat people, Zara said. I cannot change everything, but I can make some things better. That matters more than you know, Jake said. Every small act of kindness makes the world a little better. The way he looked at her with respect and admiration made Zara feel proud of herself in a way she had never experienced. Her father was proud of her when she represented the Empire at formal events or when she demonstrated her knowledge of military tactics. But Jake was proud of her for being kind and for thinking about others. His approval meant more to her than her father's ever had. One evening, as she prepared to leave, after another long conversation, Jake called her name softly. Zara, he said, and his voice sounded different somehow. She turned back to face him and saw something in his expression that made her pulse quicken. I know this situation is complicated, Jake said carefully. I know you are a princess, and I am a prisoner, and we are from different species and different worlds. But I need you to know something. Zara held her breath, waiting for him to continue. I care about you, Jake said simply. More than I should, probably. These conversations with you have been the only good thing about being captured. You are intelligent and kind and brave in ways that most people never are. I do not know what will happen to me or if I will ever see my home again, but I wanted you to know that meeting you has meant everything to me." Zara felt tears forming in her eyes as she heard his words. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. No one had ever seen her as anything more than Emperor Korith's daughter or a useful political tool, but Jake saw her as a person worth caring about. "I care about you too," she whispered. "More than I ever thought possible." They looked at each other through the energy barrier that separated them, and Zara knew that whatever happened next, her life would never be the same. She was in love with a human prisoner, and that love was going to change everything. Princess Zara had never been happier in her life than she was during the weeks following her confession of feelings to Jake Martinez. They had admitted their love for each other, and even though an energy barrier separated them physically, she felt closer to him than she had ever felt to another being. Their daily conversations became the center of her existence, and she found herself smiling throughout the day as she remembered things he had said or looked forward to telling him about her own experiences. But her happiness could not last forever. In a world built on secrets and lies, the truth came crashing down on her one evening when she was searching through the Imperial database for more information about Jake's capture. She had been trying to learn more about the initial contact between Caltharian forces and humanity because she wanted to understand exactly what had happened when they first encountered each other. Using her royal access codes, Zara dug deeper into the classified military files than she had ever gone before. What she found there made her blood turn cold and her hands shake as she read the reports. The truth about humans and Earth was more terrible than she could have imagined. The first document she opened was titled Initial Contact Report, Species Classification. It contained details about the Caltharian scout fleet that had discovered Earth and their first encounter with human forces. But what shocked Zara was not the description of the battle, but the classification that had been assigned to humanity. They were listed as Category 12 threat level, the highest danger rating in the Imperial system. Zara had studied alien species her entire life and had never seen a Category 12 classification before. Most intelligent species rated between Category 3 and Category 7. Even the fierce warrior races like the Zentari only rated Category 9. What could humans have done to earn such an extreme rating? The answer came in the next set of files. The initial Caltharian invasion fleet had consisted of 3 full battle groups, over 50,000 elite warriors equipped with the most advanced weapons in the Empire. They had approached Earth expecting an easy conquest of what appeared to be a primitive species that had only recently achieved space travel. Instead, they had encountered something that defied all Imperial understanding of warfare. The human defense forces had not just resisted the invasion, they had completely annihilated it. 50,000 Caltharian warriors had been destroyed by a species the Empire had expected to defeat in hours. Not a single ship from the invasion fleet had returned home. The reports described human military tactics as impossible and terrifying. Human forces had coordinated perfectly across vast distances and had adapted to Caltharian weapons and strategies faster than anyone thought possible. They had used their own ships as weapons when necessary and had fought with a level of determination that the surviving scouts described as inhuman. One report noted that captured human prisoners showed no fear even when facing execution and expressed only concern for protecting their families and their world. The interrogation reports described humans as completely unwilling to provide information about Earth's defenses or military capabilities even under the most extreme torture. Zara felt sick as she read these details. The gentle, kind man she had fallen in love with belonged to a species that her father's military considered the most dangerous enemy they had ever encountered. Everything she thought she knew about Jake and his people was being rewritten by these horrible documents, but the worst revelation was still to come. In the deepest classified files, she found something called Project Cleansing. The Empire had decided that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to continue existing. They were planning the complete destruction of Earth using planet killing. weapons that would sterilize the entire world of all life. The project timeline showed that preparations were already underway. A massive fleet was being assembled in secret at a staging area near the outer rim of the galaxy. The attack was scheduled to begin within months and would continue until every human in the universe was dead. The Empire had decided that genocide was the only solution to the human threat. Zara sat in her quarters staring at the documents spread across her desk and felt her world collapsing around her. The man she loved belonged to a species her father planned to exterminate. Every human man, woman, and child would be killed, including Jake's family that he had described so lovingly. His parents and his sister Lisa would all die along with billions of other innocent people. She tried to tell herself that there must be some mistake or some misunderstanding. The Jake she knew was gentle and thoughtful and completely non-threatening. How could his species be so dangerous that the Empire considered them worthy of total destruction? But the military reports were detailed and specific and came from multiple independent sources. Humans had destroyed an entire Caltharian invasion fleet and had done it so completely that the Empire now considered them an existential threat. The more she read, the more she understood why her father's military was terrified of humanity. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not surrender when faced with superior numbers or better technology. They adapted and learned and fought with a level of dedication that made them almost impossible to defeat. The reports described human soldiers who continued fighting even when mortally wounded, and human commanders who sacrificed their own lives to save their subordinates. One document contained an analysis of human psychology written by Imperial scholars. It concluded that humans possessed an unusual combination of intelligence, creativity, and protective instincts that made them uniquely dangerous when threatened. The report stated that humans would rather die than allow their families or their world to be conquered, and that this attitude made traditional imperial conquest strategies completely ineffective. Zara understood now why Jake had been kept in such a secure cell and why the guards seemed nervous whenever they had to go near. Level 7, they were not just holding a prisoner. They were holding a member of the species that had humiliated the Imperial military and proven that the Caltharian Empire was not invincible after all. As she sat there surrounded by the evidence of her father's planned genocide, Zara realized that she faced the most important choice of her life. She could pretend she had never seen these files and continue living her comfortable existence as a Caltharian princess. She could let the Empire proceed with Project Cleansing and watch as billions of humans, including the man she loved, were murdered in the name of Imperial security, or she could choose to act on the love she felt for Jake Martinez and try to save his people, even if it meant betraying her own species and everything she had ever known. The choice would define who she really was, and what she truly believed about right and wrong. Zara looked at the files one more time and made her decision. She could not stand by and watch genocide happen, especially not to the people of the man she loved. Whatever the cost to herself, she would find a way to warn humanity about what was coming and give them a chance to defend themselves. The rebellion that would eventually topple the Caltharian Empire was about to begin, and it would start with an alien princess who chose love over loyalty and justice over empire. The next morning, Princess Zara walked to Level 7 with a heavy heart and hands that shook as she carried the classified documents. She had spent the entire night thinking about what she had discovered and what she had to do about it. Sleep had been impossible as images of Jake's family and billions of other humans being killed filled her mind. By dawn, she had made her choice, but actually carrying it out would require more courage than she had ever needed before. Jake looked up with his usual warm smile when she approached his cell, but his expression changed when he saw her face. "Something is wrong," he said immediately. Without saying anything, Zara activated her portable display unit and showed him the classified files she had downloaded. She watched his face carefully as he read about his people's resistance against the Caltharian invasion and the Empire's planned response. Jake's expression grew more serious with each document, but he did not look surprised by what he was reading. "They are going to kill everyone on Earth." Zara whispered when he finished reading. Jake was quiet for a long time as he processed the information. His jaw was tight and she could see anger building in his eyes, but it was controlled anger, the kind that came from someone who had learned to think clearly even when facing terrible news. Finally, he looked up at her with those brown eyes she had grown to love. "You showed me this because you want to help," he said. It was not a question. "I can get you out of here?" Zara said desperately. "There are escape pods in the lower cargo bays, and I know the security schedules. The guards change shifts at midnight, and there is a 15-minute gap when that section is unmonitored. You could reach one of the pods and get away. You could warn your people about what is coming." Jake stood up and approached the energy barrier that separated them. "And what happens to you when they discover what you have done?" "That does not matter," Zara said, but her voice betrayed her fear. "It matters to me," Jake said firmly. They stared at each other through the barrier, both understanding the full weight of what she was offering. If Zara helped Jake escape, she would be branded a traitor to the Caltharian Empire. Her father would have no choice but to execute her publicly to maintain his authority. She would lose everything, including her life, but Jake's people might have a chance to survive. "Princess," Jake said softly, "do you understand what humans are really like when we are threatened?" Zara looked at him with confusion. "What do you mean?" "The reports you showed me are accurate," Jake said. "When human families and worlds are in danger, we become something that most species have never faced before. We do not just fight to win, we fight to make our enemies regret ever starting the war. We learn from every battle and we never stop adapting. We would rather die than let our children be enslaved or our homes be destroyed." "I do not care what your people do when they fight," Zara said. "I know who you are, Jake Martinez. I know your heart and your soul. If your species is willing to fight for survival and for each other, then they deserve that chance." Jake smiled, but it was a sad smile filled with love and regret. "You are the most amazing being I have ever met," he sighed. "You are willing to sacrifice everything to save people you have never met just because you believe it is the right thing to do. That kind of courage and compassion is rarer than you know." "Will you let me help you?" Zara asked. "Yes," Jake said. "Simply, not because I want to leave you, but because my people need to know what is coming. If there is even a small chance that your warning could help save human lives, then I have to take it." They spent the next hour planning Jake's escape route. Zara used her access codes to map the exact path from level 7 to the cargo bay where the escape pods were stored. She downloaded star charts and navigation data onto a portable device that Jake could use to find his way back to human space. Most importantly, she copied all the classified files about Project Cleansing, including fleet positions, supply routes, and attack plans. "This information could change everything," Jake said as he reviewed the intelligence she was giving him. "If human military commanders know where your fleet will be coming from and when they can prepare defenses and maybe even launch preemptive strikes." "I hope so," Zara said. "I hope your people can find a way to survive what my father is planning." As midnight approached, they both knew their time together was ending. In a few minutes, Jake would leave the cell that had been his home for months, and Zara would probably never see him again. The thought of losing him forever made her heart ache, but she knew this was the only choice she could live with. "I love you," Jake said as she prepared to disable the energy barrier. "Whatever happens next, I want you to know that meeting you has been the greatest gift of my life. You showed me that even in the darkest times, there can still be light and hope and love." "I love you too," Zara replied with tears in her eyes. "I wish we could have met under different circumstances. I wish we could have had more time." "Maybe in another life?" Jake said gently. Zara deactivated the barrier, and for the first time since they met, Jake Martinez stepped out of his cell. They embraced quickly, knowing that every second increased the risk of being discovered. Jake felt solid and warm in her arms, and she tried to memorize the feeling because she knew it would have to last her for the rest of her life. Together they made their way through the dark corridors to the cargo bay. The escape pod was small and basic, but it had enough fuel and supplies to reach the outer rim of the galaxy, where Jake could find transportation back to human space. As he climbed into the pod, Zara handed him the data device containing all the intelligence about Project Cleansing. "Save your people," she whispered. "I will never forget you," Jake promised. The escape pod launched silently into space carrying the man Zara loved and the information that would change the course of galactic history. She watched from the cargo bay window as the tiny ship disappeared into the darkness between the stars. Jake Martinez was free, and humanity would receive the warning they needed to prepare for war. 3 days later, Emperor Korath discovered that his prisoner had escaped and that his daughter had helped him. The interrogation was brutal and the execution was public, but Princess Zara faced both with dignity and courage. Her last words before the execution were a simple statement that love was stronger than empire, and that justice would eventually prevail. The war that followed lasted for 3 years and ended with the complete destruction of the Caltharian Empire. Human forces fighting alongside dozens of liberated species proved that cooperation was stronger than conquest and that freedom was worth any sacrifice. When Emperor Korath was finally captured and put on trial, his last words were a question about how humanity had known the Empire's attack plans. The answer died with Princess Zara, but the galaxy remembered her sacrifice. In the new federation that rose from the ashes of the Empire, she was honored as the being who chose love over loyalty and started the rebellion that freed countless worlds. Humans especially remembered her name and what she had given up to save them. On a small colony world near the edge of human space, a man named Jake Martinez lived quietly with his wife and children. Sometimes in the evenings when the alien sun set over the mountains, he would tell his family about a brave princess who had sacrificed everything to save people she had never met. He would tell them that love could conquer even the greatest evil, and that one person's courage could change the entire galaxy. The children would ask if the princess had been happy, and Jake would smile sadly and say that she had died knowing she had done the right thing. That kind of happiness, he would tell them, was worth more than all the kingdoms in the universe.